Hi, welcome to the Lone Star Dowsers meeting. I'm Mary Lindsay Wilson, and tonight we have Gwen Foster, who I'm very excited about. She's going to be talking about and demonstrating her SpectraChrome Green Laser. Let me make a couple of announcements while we get started. I want to say thank you to everybody who has sent in a donation. It really helps cover cost. So we appreciate that. And if you haven't and you would like to, it's at the bottom of the newsletter. You can send a check or do a PayPal. Very much appreciated. We also support our other dowsing chapters. So every week on Tuesdays, the Tucson Dowsers meet on Zoom, and they help to aid relief from fires, drought, heat waves, and floods. So weather related, all sorts of stuff. So if you want to participate in that, it's only a 15-minute program. So that's a really amazing thing that we can all practice and contribute to. And for those who helped douse for our weather here on the Gulf Coast, we appreciate you neutralizing our weather. And then there is a Douse for the Planet. That's every Thursday night on Zoom. And that's hosted from our friends in Australia, Heather Wilkes and Francis Peterson. So they do lots of good things. I think that's probably our announcements. Let's see. Tonight we have one of our favorite naturopaths, Gwen Foster. She was led to natural medicine because of her prior health issues. She received her Bachelor of Natural Health Studies with the highest honors from Clayton College of Natural Health in 2003, and she earned her Doctor of Natural Medicine, the DNM, from the World Organization of Natural Medicine Practitioners in 2008. And she also became a certified alternative health practitioner in 2009. Gwen is a Hannah-Kroger practitioner, a certified master neuro-linguistic programmer practitioner. She's a neuro-linguistic hypnotherapist. She does certified biofeedback technician. She's also a personal coach. You name it. She's probably trained and done it. She does Reiki, matrix energetics, SRT, EFT, and ECR. And she also has an incredible piece of technology that she uses and helped to develop called New Vision. And she uses that with all her clients to help identify blocks and imbalances. And her personal passion is working on underlying emotional conflicts and triggers with the help of Dr. Hammer and Michael Linkenswert and a multitude of tools. She also uses herbs and homeopathy and flower essences and essential oils and nutrition to help her clients. So that's just probably the tip of the iceberg with Gwen. But Gwen is going to talk to us tonight about, we all suffer from stored and trapped emotions or trauma from past relationships, drama, loss of loved ones, abuse, you name it, just kind of day-to-day life in the past 4 years for sure. So she's observed that so many people focus on the obvious for too long, like sadness, grief, anger, which is really preventing them from getting real results because the true issue is not identified. So if there's a faster, quicker, easier, more effective way, Gwen is gonna do it. So without further ado, I will say welcome, Gwen, and welcome to everybody who's joined us tonight.
Thanks, Mary. So if the sound doesn't change, I mean, if it's not great, tell me and I'll change whatever I need to do. So first I want to talk a little bit before I demonstrate what I am doing for Clearing Now. And what I'm doing for Clearing Now has evolved over many years. It's actually a kind of a combination of a bunch of things, and I'll explain that more in a second. But back to what Mary just said, I think it wasn't until really I had access to New Vision, which is my health scanning software, that I really realized what I'm about to say about the trying to work on the obvious too long. So I just made some notes so I didn't like forget anything, but this is kind of typical, like when a client comes to me and let's say they were raped, which is awful, and maybe it was 30 years ago and they went through 20 years of psychotherapy, and then I do a New Vision scan on them, and then the number one thing is rape. And then they'll say, no, 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 I've worked on that. That's gone. Like, that's not my issue. And I'm like, yeah, it's still there. So, and if it's in the scan, it means it's still in their field. So if you think about your field carrying around your baggage of all your stuff and all your experiences and your traumas and dramas and divorces and deaths and breakups and jobs and friendships, it's like it can get kind of a heavy bag. And then what happens from my experience is people will focus on that one thing, like the rape, but maybe they didn't ever work on feeling powerless, or feeling like they're a victim, or feeling like there's a regret maybe because they don't always lock their front door or whatever, like there's always like that other piece that needs to be cleared up. And I'm just going to tell a story that happened for me. My people that follow me have heard the story before, but it's the best story to explain what I'm talking about. So when I first got New Vision, the words history of unsafe were my top psychological match. And as soon as I saw it, I knew what that meant. Like, I knew, because in my life, I've had a lot of experiences of unsafe, multiple car wrecks, died in a car wreck, other car wrecks, frontal car wrecks, stalkers, people threatening to kill me because I prosecuted them for breaking into my house, held up at gunpoint at Kroger when I worked there in high school. I mean, a lot for one person. And what was weird was I cleared all the obvious examples. Like, I cleared everything that was an example. And I was having lunch with a friend one day, and she is aware of New Vision, and she said, well, what about the time I got mugged in your garage? And I was like, oh, well, that didn't happen to me, even though I had to deal with the police and the hospital and all this other stuff. This guy nearly beat her to death for her purse. And then I was like, yeah, I didn't clear that because it wasn't my personal experience. So anyway, I cleared that experience. And by the way, when I'm talking about this whole timeline was 4 years. It took 4 years to clear history of unsafe, but it was because I wasn't aware that all these pieces need to be cleared to really clear it, to where, like, if you believe or know anything about law of attraction, if I have a target on my head that says unsafe, then I'm going to keep experiencing unsafe situations. But once you can clear that, and basically on law of attraction, then I can say, okay, well, I'm not worried about that anymore. So that's like one example. But a better example about just the emotional part was I had a client in Denver who owned a yoga studio, and she was grieving. And she'd been grieving for 10 years over the loss of her small child that died in a car accident. And she had 2 other children, and she very clearly told me that she would have already took her own life had it not been for her other kids, because she could not get over the grief. And she also shared that she had done a million things, psychotherapy and all kinds of techniques, actually, and all kinds of things, being a yoga instructor, she knew all kinds of, woo-woo people, dowsers, and, but she still all day long, every day was crying and couldn't stop. She all day long, every day was in that mode of panic and sadness. And she was not getting better after 10 years. And so in that case, also with New Vision, I saw the top thing was pretty interesting, because I didn't really know the story of the death, except she died in a car wreck. It showed severe separation conflict. No, severe visual separation conflict. And I was like, I've never seen that before. What does that mean? Well, she was the car behind the car her daughter was in. So she saw the impact. She saw the car get T-boned in an intersection. She saw the little girl dead when she went to go open the car door. So it was all very visual. And when I asked her about it, like after she could stop crying, she said, I see that impact 100 or 1,000 times a day. I see that impact when I shut my eyes at night. I see that impact every time I drive my car at every intersection. I see that whenever I'm still. I see that when I'm meditating. So you see, it wasn't that she needed to clear grief anymore. I mean, she was obviously still grieving, but how do you get over grief if you're seeing the impact of your daughter's death 100 times a day? You're like reliving it. It's like Groundhog Day. You can't get out of the loop. So anyway, what was interesting with her is, with a technique like this, we cleared her I cleared her of severe visual separation conflict. And I just put in the address of the intersection, like had her think of the intersection, had her think of her daughter and the visual, you know, like what she saw, you know, so you want kind of a visceral response in your body. You want a visceral experience. So you want to be in that mode. You don't want to do it like you feel flat, you know, you kind of want to be in the minute. And so anyway, the next time I saw her, I said, so how's it going? And she was like, fine. I'm like, fine, or how fine? And she was like, I'm fine. Why? I said, okay. I didn't even want to bring it up. Like I was kind of nervous because the way she responded. And I said, so how are you doing, you know, with everything emotionally? And she goes, fine. Like, do you remember what we did last week? And she was like, kind of. And I said, so are you still having any visual experiences? And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, oh, so like, it's not even like in her awareness where before it was like constant, you know? So sometimes that can be like amazing. But what I would say is I wrote down some examples because I wanted you guys to think about this because these are the most common things I see. So like, let's say with an accident, the other emotions, because it's not just the trauma of the accident, you know, some of the emotions that are common with accidents are fear, survival, lack of or loss of control, like not being in control, feeling unsafe, victim, or they think they have bad luck, or anxiety. And like with divorce, the common emotions besides the divorce itself is depression, anxiety, trust, betrayal, lack of respect, not feeling heard, low self-esteem, unfair, and anger. And then with grief and death, and this could be the grief of death of someone during COVID or during just of old age or, you know, an accident or premature, you know, regret, guilt, unfair, separation, lonely, abandonment, anger, and depression. And that's what I mean, where people are focusing just on grief, but there's so many other things that could be going on there, you know, that really need to be addressed once the grief is resolved. And then with abuse, and this includes mental, physical, sexual abuse, you know, victim, being powerless, not being respected, self-punishment, low self-esteem. And then with rape, fear, survival, lack or loss of control, not being heard, lack of boundaries, victim, life is unfair, hate of God, and anxiety. Now, hate of God is on the list that Mary sent out, but that could happen on anything where you feel like God did this, you know, God did this, whatever, you know, God didn't
You're
protect.
blaming. Yeah.
Yeah, God. And then also even with addictions, young, like a lot of people think they understand addictions, but what a lot of people don't realize, and my version when I'm dealing with addictions is sometimes it's nutritional, you know, just simple stuff, dopamine, serotonin, you know, those things. But sometimes like I recently worked with a guy that was like in his 50s and he was still doing cocaine from like the 80s. And I was like, you know, saw on his scan that he was very sensitive and empathic. And he goes, yeah, how do you think I deal with that? You know, so sometimes like when you think addiction is addiction, sometimes addiction is candida. Sometimes addiction is addiction to sugar and alcohol is sugar. So you see, there's a lot of things that can be. So we can't assume like kind of just go in there and try to clear addiction because addiction could be that they're sensitive or addiction could be trying to forget something that's happened to them, a trauma, you know, so there's a whole list of things in each.
There's layers, and we have to be like a detective to just keep drilling down to find out
Exactly.
what the core issue. And I guess kind of peeling those layers of the onion where you, I guess, peel clear, peel clear, peel clear.
Yeah. Yeah. Or, you know, or in my case, and my big thing, like Mary said earlier, is to get to the underlying cause. You know, like if you don't get to the underlying cause, then you're just going to keep going in a loop. You're going to keep going in a loop with the grief or the anxiety or the addictions or, you know, whatever, wherever you're going. And you can go talk to a psychotherapist for 20 years or go to a grief counseling support group or go to these things. But what I find with those is they're not really helping. They're reinforcing the issue that your family may be screwed up, or your childhood was terrible, or whatever, so I don't personally think that talking about it forever is a great solution. I understand if someone loses a loved one and they need support in that moment. I totally understand that. I'm talking about the person who 10 or 20 years later is still crying like it happened yesterday, or still blocked like it happened yesterday. That's not really okay. I recently had a woman, I'll tell the story. I recently had a woman that came in that was in her 70s. She came into my office in person, and her top thing emotionally had to do with divorce. And I said, hey, your top emotion has to do with divorce. Like, what happened? She goes into all out, like, I couldn't understand her talk. She was crying so hard for 20 minutes. And she told me everything the guy did to her. And then I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. And then I said, and I'm thinking it happened last week, right? I'm like, this is fresh. She says, oh, no, it was in 1984. And she never remarried. She never was in another relationship since 1984. So this was like, that's not okay. Like that's not okay. I'm not giving anyone, I'm kind of like the tough love kind of practitioner. I'm not going to give you a hall pass because something terrible happened, because we have to like move through it and move on, and try to work towards getting better. I want to also talk about how this technique I'm going to share tonight kind of developed, because it's been a like a progression over 20 years, really. So when I very first got into being a health practitioner, like when I went to school, they didn't teach you any technique for clearing emotions. And so, but I was a Hannah Kroger practitioner, and I have a pendulum, and then I took some of Raymond's classes, long time ago, where he just showed the simple dowsing, kind of counterclockwise and clearing. And so I knew some basic things like that. And then there's a practitioner in Houston that I just love. Her name is Tracy Southwick at Heights of Health. And she was clearing emotions along with food allergies, because she felt like she was getting better success. Like if you could get that piece, again, all the pieces, like a dairy allergy got triggered somehow. You just didn't wake up and become allergic to dairy, but there was probably some other thing that happened that made that stick. So then, at that time we were using like a little pointer laser, like the little cheap, kind you can buy at Walmart, the little, keychain type, and just kind of going through the body. And then it was like Bradley Nelson's emotion code. And then I was using a magnet, and then I was using Hannah's blood clot board, because it's a big magnet. So Bradley Nelson's whole thing is just using a magnet to kind of desensitize the nervous system. Then, yeah,
he does the emotion code. So yeah, so it goes over, I guess, what the governing meridian, kind of like your, yeah. So for those of you that don't know what that is.
Even he modified that 3 times at least that I know of, because it used to just be here over the head, and then it was here to the tailbone, and then it was 3 times, and then it was 10 times to clear the family pattern. So even over time, he's expanded and made, I guess, the technique more thorough. But what I found with all these techniques is if you don't have all the pieces, you're not going to have either a clearing that sticks, or you're not going to have an effective clearing. You might feel better for a day or two, you might feel lighter and brighter, but then it doesn't really seem to stick. So then, as things go, I was using Hannah's crystal laser, and I was using that as the clearing tool, but they stopped making it 3 years ago. So as I was teaching other people how to clear and do that, what I'm going to show you tonight, it wasn't available unless you were one of the lucky people that had one from a long time ago. And I just happened to be in Boulder, run into a very dear friend of mine, Kimberly Shipke, who created this. And she showed me in like, it was the fastest thing I'd ever seen for clearing. And I was like immediately impressed. I wasn't impressed when she told me about it, because I was like, oh, here's another thing. But as soon as I experienced it for myself, I was like, wow, that's crazy. That is so fast. So that's what I've been using now. So it's a culmination of Bradley Nelson's emotion code, which is going up and over the, the nervous system from the third eye to the tailbone 10 times, just to clear the generational. If there is any, why not? It takes a few extra minutes. So I just like to be thorough. And the good thing about this technique is you can do it in person, which we're going to demonstrate in a second. And we can also do it remotely, which we're also going to show you how to do remotely as well. So you can do it remotely, you can do it in person. And then I'll tell you some just like extra cool things you can do with it, like with photographs and healing.
Okay.
And
I'm going to interject for a second here. So just in case someone doesn't really kind of understand, I'm going to recap. So what you found in your practice is that quite often there is an emotional component that's not resolved, that creates some kind of an issue in the person's life, and that's why they come see you. And so when we were talking about being able to drill down to what, finding out kind of what the root cause of whatever is. So if it's a trapped emotion or something else, you have your fabulous dowsing list, and your new vision that you can check and determine what that cause is. And then with the green laser, it helps to clear, it expedites the healing and the clearing so that you are free of that. Like the lady you described who had been in tremendous grief for 10 years, that it's just that quick. So did I get that right for people who
get a
don't?
gold star.
Okay, yeah. And if anybody has a question, if you want to put it in the chat, and then when we can, we'll figure out time for questions. So okay.
Yeah, the
Now,
clearing part is actually fast. It takes longer to figure out what to clear than it
right.
does to clear. The clearing is like in a second. It's like making sure we're doing the best job we can. And so, like Mary said earlier, I use New Vision, which has like 5,000 emotions, but this is a dowser talk, and I love dowsing, and I've been dowsing for 25 years now. So it wouldn't be a great dowsing talk to use a New Vision scan, but that's what I normally do. I use a scan that tells me out of 5,500 emotions, like what might be the problem. But we're going to do it the old-fashioned way, which I think is the best way actually for anyone that is a dowser, because you just need your pendulum. And Mary sent out the handout. So I want to, the handout looks like this. It was 2 pages. And remember I said we're going to try to get all the pieces. So this is a little bit different than like when you're just trying to get one yes, like one thing to work on. We kind of want to get all the pieces all at one time. So we're actually going to dowse a list. And for those of you that might be new dowsers, there's kind of a trick that I know everyone that's been dowsing knows how to do it, and that's to check a column. So I always like to check, like, you guys can do this with me. You can't, mine is going to be on my lap.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
it.
show you. Try to put things in columns
Like,
to make it
so say
easier.
if
Yeah.
anything in column 1 need to be released, that's a negative emotion or energy. Is anything in column 2? And then if you get a yes on that column, you can even go a little bit faster and say top half, bottom half, or you can just go down and check the individual items in the column. And then you go to the second column and all that. And then, so the first list is the core emotions. Like, these are very common core emotions. I didn't count how many there are, but it's a list I got from Quantum K. And the second list is, like what it's related to. And I wanted to mention a few of these because someone may read these and go, I really kind of like don't read them before you douse, but I just want to mention a few because sometimes if you read them, your brain becomes too linear. And I think with dowsing, it's best just to not know where you're headed. You just want to see what you come up with. But I just want to mention a few that someone once told me, like, well, that's weird, like health issues being a trauma. Sometimes getting a diagnosis is a trauma. If you go to the doctor and you have stage 4 liver cancer, you now have a new thing to clear, because that's now like going to track, that's going to be in your psyche. Or
right. And sometimes they'll say, oh, well, you have 3 weeks to live. They give you a prognosis that they're coming up with that may or may not be accurate. Another level of trauma, right?
Exactly. Or like a person who has like MS or fibromyalgia that's not felt good in 20 years, like they don't even know what normal is anymore. That's a trauma related to a health issue. But another one is learning disorder. What I've noticed about kids with learning disorders is they're like not only labeled, it's like ingrained, because the mom is constantly saying they have a learning disorder. My kid's autistic. They're going to doctors all the time. It's the same with a sick child, but learning disorders are also kind of to me, like a crippling diagnosis, like, because you're already know you're not the same as the other kids. You already know that, you're different and maybe not as smart or not as good or whatever. And so I think that that's unfortunate that learning disorders are labeled that way. So anyway, some of these, just think about it like that. Think about like what might be the problem, like schooling. That could be a whole host of things in school, from being bullied to being in the slow ed class to never being picked on the, volleyball or the, whatever thing, like, because you're not coordinated or something like that. So schooling can be a huge trauma. And then on the second page, this has to do with the relationship. So this could also be the person that's involved with the emotion that needs to be cleared. So let's say someone has an issue with not feeling good about themselves, and which is self-devaluation. And then you get a yes on dad or father in general. Well, then that would probably be the root, like, of where that's coming from. Because maybe the dad said, oh, you'll never amount to anything. I don't even know why you bother. You should just be finding a husband, those kind of things. So, and then the last section, release any statements that are weak. This is like kind of the opposite of thinking about how an affirmation works. So, like, for instance, I am attractive. If you get a yes on that one, that means you really don't think you are attractive. Like, so you see what I mean? These are all positive statements, but if you get something that's a weak here or a no, it means you don't think that. Like, you're thinking the opposite, or you don't really believe that statement. So that's how that one works. So what we're going to do is I'm going to douse my friend Colleen, who's up now. So I'm going to have her, she's going to be sitting right here behind me just for a second, because I need to douse her first and see what we're going to work on. And she's also my next door neighbor, so it's pretty handy during the storm that she come over and be the helper.
And I like to get cleared.
And she's getting cleared, yeah. So I'm just dowsing. I'm just sitting here going through the list.
And we've gotten a little feedback that some people's handout is more in paragraph form than columns. I apologize for that. Gives you more more of a challenge to douse.
We can send out the other copy later, like after with the recording, the one that's in the columns. It's just because some things were added last minute. That's why. I'm not letting her see what I'm getting. She's sitting behind me. Yeah.
So when you check, are you checking for a specific, you're just seeing what's the strongest area of resonance to clear?
Yeah, with her, I'm just saying what would be the best thing to clear tonight. I'm just asking what's the best thing to clear tonight. What I told Mary right before we started is we can also go down like a certain lane. Like if someone says, well, I want to work on why I have a block with money, or why I have a block in relationships. So that's something we can do too. But with Colleen, because I just kind of wanted to do it blind and see what I get.
Colleen's brave.
She's brave. I didn't give her very much amount of information. So that's also why she's brave. Okay. So
First time.
yeah. So can y'all see us? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'm actually gonna be behind her. So this is what I got, and so I just want her to think of what this means to her. She can share whatever she wants. Now, what I want to say is when I'm doing this, I don't want an hour narrative. I want her to be able to embody that feeling that comes up as we talk, but what I don't want to do is do that reinforcement of the narrative. So I don't want like a long, this is what this means, and this is what happened since 1984. I don't, all that's not necessary because we just want to be done with it. Okay, so I know a lot about her, so I know what some of this has to do with, but she may surprise me and say something I don't know. Okay, so the emotion is frustration.
So I agree on several levels.
Yeah, the people, father, sister, and other relatives.
Yeah.
And then the statements where you're weak is, I can say no, and my parents are proud of me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you tell me whatever you want, but I want you to also, as you're talking, I want you to try to feel when you get frustrated with your family and like something that would really maybe set you off.
All of those are really spot on.
You might have to talk a little.
Yeah, so I've got 4 sisters and all very strong personalities. And parents that are aging and need a lot of help right now. And I seem to be the only one that's helping. So there's a lot of frustration.
I was gonna say that would account for a lot of frustration.
Yes.
And what about the, I get who the players are, other relatives, who would be someone besides a sister?
I've got a lot of those. So besides them, I really don't have any other relatives. Brother-in-law, I've got one brother-in-law.
Aunts, uncles?
Yeah, but I've got really great relationships with them, and there's not anything very that I'm aware of.
Okay, what about, I can say no?
I can't say no, so I don't say no to anyone, and I need to do better at that because otherwise I'm just spreading myself way too thin. Just like tomorrow, I should be able to say no to certain things, but I feel guilty when I do. So I don't say no. I make it work, even though it puts more stress on me.
Okay, and I think that might lead into my parents are proud of me because I happen to know your parents,
Mhm.
but do you think the not saying no is like somehow related to making sure they're feel proud of you, or what do you think that has to do with? Or do you think that has to do with when you were younger, or?
Well, I was not a nice young lady growing up to my parents. I put them through a lot. I don't carry that with me anymore. I don't believe I could bury that down. But right now, like the guilt is my dad's in the hospital and I couldn't bring him dinner tonight. And so I feel guilty and I feel like I let him down. He loves to spend time with me. Now that's kind of silly, but that's the only thing I can think of for that.
So what I'd like to do is just see, so I'm gonna muscle test. You guys don't have to be able to muscle test. Actually, I'm gonna turn you this way so I can do this better. I just wanted her to say the statements. I just did the clearing and I went more than 10 times. It's probably 12 times. I try to do at least 10 so what I'm doing is going from the third eye up and over to the tailbone and then starting back at the third eye, not multi-directional, just one direction. And I'm counting, but I also use my body as a pendulum. So as I'm doing it, I'm checking as I'm going, you know, like is this clear? And I'll get just a slight sway. I don't have to like fall over, but if I get the name to keep doing it, I keep doing it, even if it's past 10. And then while we're talking, I want to get to like all the points. But I want to just ask on the statement. So I want to first, so I'm going to muscle test and say my name's Colleen.
My name's Colleen.
Holstrom. Okay, say my name's Joseph.
My name's Joseph.
Yeah, she's not Joseph. Okay, so I want you to say my parents are proud of me.
My parents are proud of me. My gosh.
Okay, so there's still something, and I kind of thought there's something here that we need to get to. I want to do this, I can say no.
I can say no.
No, she can't say no. So that didn't clear. But see, this is what I was talking about earlier, that I didn't feel like she got to what that was, like, completely. Because sometimes you'll feel like a ship, you'll feel like there's something there that, you know, happens or moves or whatever. So. we
So
have to
you
invest-
cleared the frustration
Yeah,
and
so-
certain levels of this. So now you're going to dig a little deeper.
Yeah, so just say the word frustration.
Frustration.
Hold strong. Yeah, that cleared. Let's say your sister. So just think of your sisters.
Which one?
Okay, Carolyn,
Okay.
hold strong. There. But I kind of felt like on the statements because I could kind of feel her and I also could see her face and I could tell she didn't resonate with those statements. Like completely, you know, like maybe old stuff, but I think there's something still there. So I want to go back to the list, and this is going to happen with you guys, but you want to do this either douse to see if it's clear, and if you get a no, then there's something else we need to add, or a story, or a time frame, or something, you know. So so now I am going to go to the list. So you know, when I did the list the first time, I said I just did it like with no intention except what does she need today. This time I have an intention. What's related to I can say no or can't say no? What's related to my parents are proud of me? So I'm gonna douse the list again, but with those two in mind. So I need a minute. So you guys can douse too if you like, but I'm gonna just sit back here and douse real quick and see the list. I'm gonna do with saying no and proud.
I'm dousing my list. Or you guys can douse your paragraphs. It's going to be interesting to see if we come up with the same things.
Yeah, I still go to the other sections as well to see if there's other people involved. Yeah. Mhm. Okay. I hate to go down this road, but it's here. So, the words I got were, on the first list related to failure, regret, and self-esteem, and related to suicide and religious indoctrination, which she's Catholic, her upbringing was Catholic. So this still has to do with saying no and your parents being proud. So
I left home at a very early age. I put my parents through not nice stuff. And I really spent my adult life spending a lot of time with them, and I really I didn't think that I carried that guilt anymore. They keep telling me that they're so proud of me and all those kind of things. I guess I don't own it. I guess I don't internalize it, because I did not put them through a good 5 years growing up. That's gotta be what it is.
Okay, do you want to talk about the other?
Yeah, I married the man of my dreams, my soulmate, I thought, when I was 26. And he committed suicide in 2007. And you know, that's kind of rocked my world, as it would anyone. The week before he died, oh, I'm gonna start crying. Uh, the week before he died, he said, and I was with her the day he committed suicide. We were at Schlitterbahn down in Galveston, if you remember.
Yeah.
And I said, I would never marry again because he was the love of my life, and time was, it was just not a good time in our relationship. And there we go, I went and married again. So is that the guilt? Is that some of the guilt? Because I went ahead and married again for the wrong reasons, and I'm not divorced. But I felt like I was,
And regret, I think regret and guilt could be.
well, and Jeff said that week before, he said, I've lived a lot longer than I thought I would ever because of you and Mitchell, our son. And I was, at that point, I was proud. I thought, wow. And then I now look back at it as a sign. Why didn't I see it as a sign? Why didn't I see it as something I should have done something different about? And get him the help that he needed. And living with suicide is not something that, it's never a club that you want to be a part of. But I really think I've worked through, but I know I'm not the reason why he did it, but we had such a good life. And he was bipolar, so there was highs and there was lows. A lot of highs. And when the lows came, the lows were really bad. So you kind of say, okay, I can live with that. The lows, because the highs were so good, but, yeah.
Okay, the other word is self-esteem, like low self-esteem related to probably regret and guilt, but maybe something different. So when I say self-esteem, what comes to mind?
You and I've actually talked about this. I do think my self-esteem has been not great lately. I do things and settle for things that I shouldn't because I don't think I'm good enough or worthy enough to be with that person or be successful on that project or run a good business. I don't think I'm good enough in those areas.
So, right before Lucy barked, I felt a shift on that last one. Did you feel any shift?
I did.
Yeah, okay. So, I want to muscle test her again on the two statements. I can say no, because I don't know how this relates to saying no, but somewhere in there, the words had to do with saying no. And we want to free her up. I mean, the whole point of all this is to free someone up from whatever is holding them, you know, of course, from the past. So now I want you to say, my parents are proud of me.
My parents are proud of me.
Hold strong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I can say no.
I can say no.
Like, big difference. Like I'm hanging, I'm pressing
Yeah.
very hard. She can attest.
Yeah, it was much harder the second time. And
I'm pushing as hard as I can without hurting her arm. And the first time I was barely pushing and she just dropped. So that's like what's cool about the green laser. Now, in all reality, if I was just going to do a simple word like frustration, I could do that in 1 second. Like I don't need to go through all this process, but then I don't feel like it's as complete, right? So if I wanted to clear a single word like anger, you know, like literally with anger, I could do something like this. Let's say I'm angry, I'm pissed off. It's hard to get me very riled up, but let's say I am. I can just do this and like that. I can be in the moment of anger and it's 1 second. 1 second. I mean, that's it. There's another way you can do it that is the way that Kimberly taught me. And if you want to not work on yourself as like doing this, and if you want to kind of work on yourself as a third person, you can use like a Q-tip and spit on the Q-tip, and I have it on a paper plate, and you can shine the laser on the Q-tip because it has your DNA now.
Don't
It's
you
like,
call, do you call that a witness
what?
in dowsing? Do you call that a witness in dowsing?
Yeah, or, I mean, I've used saliva from the Hannah Kroger days, like for when I was doing saliva samples, and or you can use hair, you can use a photograph. Maria Boldry told a story one time where her daughter had a hurt foot, and her daughter sent the picture. She said, "Oh, send me a picture of her foot," and she just shined the light. We were in Estes Park at this time, and she just put the green laser on the picture on her phone on the text. And then her daughter was like, "Oh yeah, I can get on my tippy toes now." Like she couldn't, like the tendon in the bottom of the foot wouldn't allow her to like go like this, like to reach up, because she had something done to it. And after she green lasered it, it was like fine. So like, or let's say like with your pet, like let's say your dog is having anxiety. I'll have Colleen hold
Okay, well,
my-
let me just say, Colleen, thank you for sharing your story. There's a lot of appreciation in the chat for you being vulnerable and doing that. And we
Thank
can't
you.
wait to hear what the report is that this is shifting for you.
I will be definitely reporting that. Of course, we see each other every day, so yeah, but
She's gonna be all confident and not like saying,
watch out, world.
watch out. So if you want to do like a pet, let's say you need to do something for your pet, you do the very same thing. Don't ever put the green laser in towards your eyes though. So I wouldn't shine it towards your eyes, not even on a Zoom call. Like you don't want to shine it in someone's face on Zoom, and you don't want to shine it in your pet's face. So you don't, instead of third eye, because on a pet, that's kind of like where their eyes are, you'd start like on the crown of the head and just go down the back, like to the tailbone. Same thing, you know, because sometimes pets are sad, sometimes they're lonely, sometimes they're anxious. So you can do the same thing just to kind of help free them up. And the funny thing about pets is sometimes you'll feel them kind of, you know, do the little twitch, or you'll have them kind of shake it off, or they'll run away like after 2 or 3 times because they're like done, you know, like they're like, "I'm done, I don't need you to keep doing that." Maggie's just such a good girl. She'll sit there if we hold her forever. And she's like, "What are you doing?"
So what if she had some kind of a physical thing? Would that work as well?
Yeah, you could do it like on the part where she's having a problem, like her leg or her butt or her ears or, you know, whatever. The other thing you can do with the laser, I have a whole 3.5-hour video on YouTube that I'll send that talks about lots of ways to use this, but you can also go around and use it to clear a room, clear your house. Like instead of saging, if people don't like the smell of sage, you can use it also for clearing. I would just at least have one door or window open and go around the corners, you know, the floorboards. Like if you're having weird stuff like happen in your house, you can use it for clearing all that too. I recently hurt my wrist very badly with her, and I was shining it on my wrist, you know, to help it heal faster. I never went to the doctor, even though a few people said I should probably go get x-rays, but you can do like all kinds of things with it. So it's a nice, and it's small, so it's very easy to, you know, keep with you. Okay, so
my dad has neuropathy in his feet, and we use it on his feet.
And
you
it
can
helps.
use it, all kinds of things. So if anyone had, do you want me to go into any questions on her? Do you want me to do the skeletal chart example next?
Let me see what's happening in the chat here. Why does the laser work and what is it doing?
That's a good question. So this part is just a little cheap Chinese, you know, laser. It has like, I don't want to shine it at y'all, but I don't know if you can see the pattern it has on my hand. So it's not a single pattern. Like, can y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see it, Mary?
Yes, but turn around and do it on your screen behind you.
Put it on my, or put it on my
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you see it's a spread out pattern. And then this part is something that Kimberly developed, and it has a little vial inside that has an inert gas. It has some copper wire around the tube of inert gas, and it has some little, I think they're quartz inside this wrapping. So you don't want to ever take that off because it'll fall apart. So the wrapping is keeping all the magic inside there. And then there's a tube of inert gas that I can't tell what is in there.
So it's a basic green light laser, but then there's like kind of a secret sauce that has been created that has this amazing effect.
Yeah, and this is what's expensive because she has these milled individually. So this is like a acrylic thing, but then she has to have someone make these custom, like they're handmade, and then they have to put all this stuff together. It's actually a little weighted because of the metals and the tube on this side. And so, and then there's one other piece that I want to mention for all the people that love stones. Like I have quite a collection of little gemstones back there, you know, quartz, garnet, tiger's eye, whatever. So there's also this, which is called the enhancement cap. And this is pretty cool because it fits on the end of the laser and you can put things in there like your vitamins or pills. Like I have some sleep pills back there. So you can put like your crystal in there. And then this becomes like an amplifier. My favorite for doing that is selenite. Selenite's a great amplifier and selenite's great for clearing traumas and emotions as well. So you can do this enhancement thing. And this one I can shine at you because then you're not getting the green laser in your face. But there's so the little crystals inside there. So if you want to put a substance in there, like frankincense or an herb or a crystal or something colored, you can put it in what's called the enhancement cap. And so it just has like a little.
You want to amplify that, it'll project it.
Yeah.
So will you hold it up and show the whole thing?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are used to like selenite and quartz and rose quartz for clearing. Those have been used forever, but a lot of crystals, I'm sure a lot of dowsers are into crystals just because they kind of go together. But you know, there's a lot of crystals that have special qualities. I just like selenite the best, and selenite looks like silica. It's like almost an opaque, clear, not clear, opaque, crystalline, and has like little lines in it, almost like silica does. And it's a nice amplifier. But also, if you have a very small pyramid or a small piece of orgone, you could put that in the cap as well to kind of amplify what you're doing or and put a new intensity on what you're doing or something like that. So, and I would just say you can douse those too. Like I have a big assortment here and I'll use one on Mary's clearing, but I have them all like in a, you know, plastic thing. I have like 3 of these. So I can also douse like which crystal to use for a particular person and then pick the crystal and put it in the enhancement cap. And then like, here's a bottle of pills. And so I can also do the same thing. I can, like, let's say you have a small child and you don't want to give them something to sleep or CBD or something like that, or a pet that you have a hard time giving medicine to, you can put the pill in the enhancement cap and shine it onto their body, you know, wherever, like if it's a digestive enzyme, like on the stomach area, things that would make sense anyway. If you're going to do sleep, you always want to do the crown because the pineal gland is right under the crown chakra right here. So you want to point it then here because it's the pineal gland that converts your melatonin and serotonin to melatonin and tryptophan and all those conversions. So it's the pineal gland you want to access.
So before we kind of when we get towards the end, you'll let people know that there were some questions about specific stuff on the laser and kind of where they can get it and that kind of stuff. So we'll address that kind of at the end.
Okay. All right. So we're going to do Mary now. And what I want to do a little bit different because I just want to show you guys a different example is I want to have Mary tell me a lane.
I only have to pick one.
So an area of something she would like help with. Now, this is probably more common, you know, when people say, I just can't get something done. I just can't, you know, so what lane do you want me to check or give me I've
kind of got 2 lanes. One lane is, you know, the weight that does not seem to be moving. And the other would definitely like to have an increase in finances.
Okay, so let's just say weight and money. Let's try to do it together.
That'll work.
So I'm going to go through the list also with Mary and I want to speak to also, since other people are dowsing, because I want to speak to this because this comes up a lot when people ask me about dowsing when I teach the HANA courses, is it's not uncommon for people to get different answers dowsing. You know, a lot of times if you're dowsing something and you're all on the same lane, you're going to get similar answers, because that happens a lot of times when I do the HANA classes. But sometimes when you're doing something like blind, like y'all don't know Colleen, we didn't say a lane to go down. There was not really a lot of information. I want to use that example too, because sometimes like when you're doing yourself, I like to just kind of be like open to every possibility, because sometimes our like monkey brains are like, we need to focus on this, but maybe our body is like, well, we want to do that, you know, so that's the difference. But anyway, what I was going to say is, you know, if you were to clear, like, let's say you got something different, and you were to clear that, you're still helping that person, you know, because like Mary said earlier, there's layers of the onion, and, you know, you can cut an onion or peel an orange multiple ways, and you're still going to get the job done. So don't worry if your things were different, because maybe you would have come up with, mom instead of dad. Well, there's probably some frustration there too. And I didn't get a yes on that, but it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be helpful to clear that, you know, or, you know, in that same lane. So, or you might have come up with a different word altogether, and she would have said, oh yeah, that's my sister's, because
I got abandonment when I was dowsing for her.
abandonment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, because they're not helping. She has 3 sisters that actually moved away, and they're not like helping with her mom and dad. And so, you know, it's that too. And abandonment can also be from her husband, you know. So you see what I mean, is that you might still get to a similar story in the same story, you know, with different words, different keywords. And so that's that. Okay, so I'm going to check Mary, and I'm going to be focusing on weight and money. And I'm going to do what I said earlier. I'll do the row, and then I try to figure out what in there I want to work on. Maggie, please.
Was her or not?
Okay, now I'm doing the section that has to do with like the events.
Everybody at home can do your own dowsing and see what we compare. Or I wonder, kind of like tapping, could they get borrowed benefits, you know, from this too?
Yeah, you
'Cause
can
it
use
depends on what your intention is.
exactly. Okay, now I'm checking people.
Hope doesn't open a can of worms.
Yeah, we all, but that's okay because we're gonna clear it.
Okay.
And I can't emphasize enough as I'm going down the list that you want to get all the words. Don't just stop at one and go, oh, I'm going to do this. Like it's important, I think, to get to all of them. So Colleen is going to be Vanna.
Okay, I can do that.
That way y'all can see this really good. This is a large version of a pretty simple skeletal chart that you can get online. So if you just go to Google and type skeletal chart, you can print these. And I bought this one, but I also have a lot of smaller versions that I have laminated that I use for remote clearing. So when I'm on a phone appointment with somebody, can y'all see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna douse Mary to see, you know, like what the energy is instead of muscle testing since she's not here. So what I do with I don't know if y'all can't see me, but you don't have to see me douse, I don't think. But I want to just check the energy on how much this is impacting Mary, and it's like over 100%. So it's like, you know, when I'm doing a fan chart, I'm at 100 and then it's past 100. So it's like at a 110 or 115. And then we're going to check it at the end to make sure it's at 0 or close to 0. Okay. You want to muscle test or dowse or something just to know, because sometimes you don't feel a shift and Mary may not feel a shift. And sometimes you do, but you still want to check yourself, because just like with Colleen, if something doesn't feel complete, we're going to dive in a little bit more. Okay. So what we're going to do.
Did you need to put my name on the chart, or you're just intending that that is me remotely?
No, it's here.
Oh, okay. All right. So you stuck my name on the chart. All right.
Place of birth up here representing that this is going to be Mary. I'm going to grab
Okay.
the laser. And I'm going to talk about what the words are. Okay, this has to do with money. So, and I want you to say what, like Colleen did, anything that comes to mind with these words, okay, for you. Okay, so the first word is addiction. So addictions was a yes. So what comes to mind with that word?
That's a whole family, multi-generational thing.
Okay. What I'm doing, just so y'all can see on the chart, is I'm doing exactly like I did with Colleen. I'm starting at the third eye and I'm going around to the tailbone. Okay. So on the skeletal chart, and her name is up here. Now I could have her photograph up here. If I had a photograph, I could have taped a photograph to the thing, but I'm just have her name, date of birth, place of birth. Okay. Is there anything else you want to add to that might?
Yeah, there's a strong likelihood I'm addicted to sugar. And again, I think that's a family thing, but.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going with that. Okay, the next word is betrayal.
I mean, that's a pattern.
But think of one time you felt betrayed. Think of a specific time that you felt betrayal. By the way, your people are dad and daughter.
Okay. So just think of that experience.
Mm-hmm. And betrayal doesn't have to do with dad and daughter necessarily. It's just that we asked money and weight, and I got dad and daughter.
Right. And my father died before my daughter was before I was even pregnant.
Okay, and then the next word was helplessness.
You're all resonating.
Okay, so can you think of a specific time, like actually feel it in your body when you felt helpless, like when there's something you couldn't do about something?
Yeah. Do I need to describe it or just think about it?
It's up to you. You don't have to, but you can if you want to say it. And then the next word is unworthiness. So again, I want you to think of a time that you felt that way. Can you get there? Can you think of?
Yeah. I'm just like, shh. Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of awful stuff that happened growing up. And so, yeah, all of that.
Well, the next word I think has to do with that, but I don't know, emotional abuse.
Yeah.
So think of a specific time.
Okay.
And when you think of a specific time, it can be something that you're hearing, you saw, you
You
felt.
know what just came to mind? I mean, I remember being a little kid and in church and loved singing, and my mom, kind of leaned over and kind of pinched me and told me if I couldn't sing on key, I needed to not sing, so that shut me up for quite a while. I'm sure it was
And
just frustration of having, four squirming kids in a church pew. But yeah, I
that's
was I
thyroid,
was
right?
belting it out and was not to her liking.
And that's thyroid, right? The holding that back. Okay, parental betrayal. So can you think of at least one example?
Yeah.
Okay, sexual initiation. So on that one, like actually think of that too, like whatever that
Yeah.
was. And then past trauma, that's just such a wide category of past trauma, but think of just one. Think of something that happened, and that could be a mental, emotional, physical, or sexual. A trauma can be an accident, though. It can be literally any past trauma. Okay, then I want you to think of something specific about your dad. Like something that you experienced, like it could be in one of these categories would probably be a good idea. And just a memory of something related to your dad. And now I want you to think of one related to your daughter also.
I'm going to say my there's like all this stuff happening in my heart and the chest area.
I have just the thing for that.
Good.
I don't know why. I actually thought I might need it on Colleen, but I brought out Hannah's blood clot board. And I'm gonna put this here and just kind of smooth that
I
out.
have one. Should I get it too?
It wouldn't hurt.
Okay.
Let me
Yeah, like the,
what it does. Lucy, come here. Come on, Bubs.
okay.
So what the blood clot board is for blood clots. But when we have a broken heart or a clogged up heart or a shut down heart chakra or anything where there's blockage, right? Because blockage doesn't mean just physical heart. In the blood clot board, this is one of Hannah's gadgets. I'll put it up close to the camera. Inside is ground up magnets and some molasses. And that combination is really good for dissolving blood clots. But when someone's feeling a heart thing, and like I said, I grabbed it because I thought I might need it on Colleen, and I use this one all the time, but you can just use it over the heart area. So on a skeletal chart, you can still just use it over the heart area just to smooth that out. The stuff that has to do with our heart, our physical heart or heart chakra. Okay, Mary has hers, so she'll keep doing it. So did that come up when I talked about Jordan?
Yeah.
Or was it coming up from your dad?
I think both.
Okay. So I want to leave this for a minute. I want her to be, feel okay, and let's clear this. So I'm going to continue to do this while she's doing the blood clot board. Another cool thing about the blood clot board is like after we get done and I have Mary's name and everything on the skeletal chart, I can literally lay the blood clot board on the skeletal chart just to kind of heal the heart, to bring the heart back in balance. So I can just leave it on the chart, just like I can leave it on a photograph. So that's a kind of cool thing you can do with that too. You feel better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's two statements. The first one is, I am successful. She's laughing instead of Sometimes like laughing is a way to move through, right?
Yeah, it is.
So think of that. How does it feel? Like say it out loud, actually. Say, I am successful.
I am successful.
And how's it feel?
Feels a bit like a contradiction at this time.
Okay. I deserve abundance.
I deserve abundance. Wow,
that-
I got this huge like no in my head.
Yeah, so what I'm gonna do, because I wanna talk for a minute and then check you. I'm gonna put her skeletal chart down because well, Colleen could do it and hold it, but I actually want to hold the green laser right over her skull.
Sorry, that's me.
Yeah, that's all right. Just holding it over there, just to kind of clear out the cobwebs, like on the statement. And while she's doing that, I want to check the energy of this, because remember it was like 115. So for those of you that maybe are new dowsers, you can go online and find the fan chart, which is just for me, 0 is far left and 100 is far right. And when I checked her on the energy of these words, it was like past 100. So I'm going to check it now. And I don't get it's clear. I get like it's maybe 30%. Like I've been dowsing so long, I just have the fan chart in my brain, but it's like 30%. So there's something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back through the list and on the words that I circled, because I just print these and then I can just circle them and put the person's name on them. And then I save them, to my notes if I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to check the words and see if they cleared or not and see what didn't clear. Because if it went from 110 to 30, something is in here. Okay, well, addictions didn't clear. So let's go back to that word. Because you said it's probably a family pattern, and you said there's probably an addiction to sugar. I'd say from a less like obvious perspective, like what else comes to mind having to do with addictions and how have they affected you? Like not necessarily the family pattern of it, but you personally.
I've overcome addiction. Everyone in my family has addictions. And yeah, there's been a lot of people in my life with addiction, and that's not been good, beneficial, easy. It's been very painful.
So can you break free of the family pattern?
I mean, I feel like I have, but I don't have control over others around me that are in their addictions.
Well, let's just say with sugar. I mean, like if there's
Okay.
still sugar addiction, can we leave that family pattern behind and just leave that completely? Because your family doesn't define you.
No. I mean, and maybe it's the word love addiction came up, but I think it's almost lack of that. That, maybe the sugar represents love. I'm not sure, or self-love or something that's just popping up. So,
Well, there's also love addiction. That's, any codependency situation is love addiction. So there's all kinds of things. I mean, also.
well, I was trained to be a really good codependent. That is something that I struggle with. So
one thing I want to tell you that I'm doing, you guys, Colleen's holding this. Now, if Colleen wasn't here helping me, that would be flat and I would have the light on it. I now have the pendulum, and as we're talking, I'm going counterclockwise with my pendulum. So I'm just going counterclockwise as we're talking to try to clear up this 30%. She's got the green laser on the chart, and it would be the same if she had a photograph and we just plop it on there because I need my hands. So we can do the green laser technique, which is third eye to tailbone, or put it on a specific part of the body that we're talking about. If it's heart, we put it over the heart. If it's a brain, which I think addictions have to do with the brain, but the family pattern too, we're trying to break the cycle, right? So is there anything else that comes up with that?
yeah. I think there was so much that happened at such a early age. There was a lot of a disassociation. And so that feels somehow connected.
Okay. All right. I'm going to check the other words. No. Well, that is the only one I'm getting a yes on. So let me just check in general now. Yeah, I got to 0 now. So when I'm checking now, that could be it was just addiction that seemed stuck, you know, because when I got to the rest of the words, were they affecting, you know, are they not completely cleared? And I got a no on the rest of them. And then we got her over here, Miss Vanna, healing the, you know, whatever's going on in the head. You know, we could go back over the heart. We could sit it there. You know, sometimes when I finish an appointment, I'll just leave the light on and go to the next person, but have it like over the heart, have it over the throat. Like, let's say they have thyroid issues, put it over the throat chakra. You know, if they're having some kind of female problems, you could put it over the, you know, the groin. You know, vaginal, like in between the legs area. If they're having stomach issues, you can shine it just over the belly button area, you know, the navel. And you can use any part of the skeletal chart. I like the side view for doing the green laser because I can clearly see the third eye going down to the tailbone. But when you're in the frontal view of the skeletal chart, you can actually put it on any part of the anatomy that you like. And like I said, I have a smaller version on my desk. This one would be kind of too big for my desk, but it's good for like demonstrations. So what's going on in your brain? Like where's your eyes going to? Leroy, no.
That whole codependency addiction thing, it just makes me, what were our things that didn't resonate, the success and the successful and abundance. So yeah, maybe there's some, I don't know, story or something that I can't receive for myself that I always have to do for others. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. So as people go through pieces, and she might, you know, what happens too, and I'll say this to Colleen and Mary, is that sometimes with the clearing, and this has to do with what Mary said about the layers of the onion, is, and this almost never seems to fail, that when I do a clearing on someone, they'll text me the next morning and say, oh, I thought of something else. I thought of that one more thing. I had a dream and I haven't thought about this in years. And so it's funny because this morning I had something happen in a dream. I had this horrible dream last night of what happened to me last year with moving twice. And so in my dream last night, I have to move like 3 times in 3 months, and I'm moving by myself using like a Toyota Corolla. And I have to put as many things as I can in the car and then drive a long distance and then go back and get the next load. And then I'm like, well, how do I do that with the mattress? It was a nightmare. It was a total nightmare. And then when I got to my desk, I was like, okay, clear that, because I'm not moving. So, and that's over with. But you know what I mean is sometimes a dream is like a reminder of something. Like you can have a dream about your dad, or sometimes you'll clear something and you'll hear that from that person, you know, that you haven't heard from in a long time. Well, you're not going to hear from your dad unless it's in a dream, but you can hear from like your ex-husband, you can hear from your daughter, you could hear from somebody. And it's almost like energetically they get that there's been some kind of something shift, and then they'll like reach back out like, oh, but wait, you know, like you're getting away from me. So sometimes that happens too, or people just haven't talked to someone in a really long time and then they'll hear from them. Those things aren't unusual, but I think the most common thing is tomorrow thinking, oh, there's one more thing. And I get emails all the time like this, or texts, you know, oh, I forgot. And it was something major, like, you know, a big piece of the puzzle, but they just couldn't come to it. That's also like, if that happens to you guys, and if you're doing this exercise, and you can use the Raymond Grace technique of clearing, you can use things that you know, because a lot of you know stuff, I'm sure, then clear it in the minute. Don't wait for a backlog, and don't wait like when you need an appointment to get to that thing. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to get a backlog of 20 things. If you have just like the blood clot board, I sell these on my website. if you just do it with the blood clot board and you don't have the green laser, you know, just don't let there be a backlog of stuff if something else pops up that has to do with this list, because it's very
Right,
common.
we can be empowered to do it ourselves.
Thank you.
I keep it going, but it stopped.
Okay.
It needs to be plugged in.
Okay, so thank you, Miss Vanna. I'm going to show my screen because I know one of the questions is about like where do you get the green laser? So on my website, which is gwenfosternd.com, you can buy the green laser. You can buy the green laser with the cap, or you can buy the cap by itself if you have a green laser and never bought the cap. So all those are options. And then what I'll do is send you guys the YouTube video that's actually 3 hours, because there's lots of cool things you can do with it and lots of ways to clear. And if you ask like people that have been using it for a while, like myself, Maria Boldry, Kimberly Shipke, you'll find that we all do it a little differently. Like Kimberly uses it with her tuning forks because she teaches how to clear with tuning forks, and Maria uses it on lots of things, like the photograph of her kid's ankle that I would have never thought of. And then Gaia, who's on the call the other day, said, well, have you tried it for long COVID? And like, no, because I didn't even think of it. I didn't even think to clear something like long COVID with it. So I'm gonna say what Raymond always says, like, why not? Why not? Just try it, go for it. And if you have a way to muscle test, that's really impressive when you muscle test, because you can see the weakness and then you can see like super quickly the strength, and it's like amazing. So that's that. And then the blood clot board, if you just go to my website, which is up on the screen, and just type in blood clot, you'll see the board. It's $27. And that's for everything from concussions to blood clots to varicose veins to a trauma or injury, bruising. It has magnets in it, so it's a great clearing tool, like the Bradley Nelson emotion code technique as well. And it never goes bad. I mean, I have at least 5 blood clot boards, and I know at least one of them is 20 years old. So they don't ever go bad. You can use them forever. And they're a great healing technique if you're a practitioner and you get people on your massage table, like massage therapy or chiropractic or things like that. There's a class I teach that's the Hannah hands-on class where you dowse the body. Actually, I'll just tell you this real quick because it's easy. You take a skeletal chart, you ask your pendulum where, if there's blood clots, and if you get a yes, you point to the skeletal chart. Well, where are the blood clots? And then you take the blood clot board and just kind of like slowly, you know, kind of go over that area of the body until you get that it's cleared. So this is a big deal since COVID. This is a big deal with long COVID, COVID vaccines, all this stuff. A lot of people have blood clots anyway because they're too acidic, they're dehydrated, they're anemic. There's lots of reasons people have blood clots, not just COVID stuff, but since COVID, there's probably more than I've ever seen before.
So is there a sign to tell if you have a blood clot? I mean, you just douse, or I mean, if you didn't douse, how might they know they have a blood clot?
Well, varicose veins are blood clots for sure. Hemorrhoids are an obvious blood clot thing. And if it's not those two, then it could be like brain fog, poor memory, low stamina, low energy, like the kind where you're just like, you know, just like no energy. Purplish or pale, you know, ends of your fingers or toes. Like if you have any purple anything, you have terrible circulation. Neuropathy is very commonly blood clots in the legs. I mean, those are the main ones. Like if someone's ever been told they have DVT or deep vein thrombosis, that's blood clots. I always tell people that if you can see varicose veins anywhere, you have them all over. You just have certain veins close to the surface of the skin, like on the back of your hand. Sometimes those will look engorged. And then also on your legs, those are the most obvious places that you have veins very close to the surface. But if you have those engorged or your legs, you also have that going throughout your whole body. So those are the most common signs. I know we're almost.
I think you answered everything in the chat. And thank you, Chris. You put your website in there and a link to this, so folks can have easy access for it. But your information is also on you know, will be on the replay. So do we douse? So what, now I need to know what level am I at? Let's see.
What level?
Yeah, so if I went to 30,
I dowsed before I started answering, talking about the website, and I got 0 now.
okay.
So
Mm,
I'm dowsing right now, and you can see it's going to the left straight on. So like, you know, what's the energy around all these things that need to be cleared? I'm getting a 0.
okay.
I
Thank
did
you.
get a 30 after the 110, and it's okay to check it, you know, in the morning and make sure that everything's still good. But like if you have a green laser, whether you're a practitioner or not, doesn't matter. I mean, a lot of people buy them for home use. I know when I first learned emotion code, I had a magnet with me all the time, you know, and I used to be in the car and let's say someone cuts you off. The other night coming home from the airport from New York, I had a guy on NASA Road 1 heading right at me head on, and he only changed lanes within 100 feet of my car. Like I was very stressed out, and he was in the wrong side of the lane and he couldn't get to the right side of the road because there's like a solid median there. And so I was like really tired from the flight and the day. And then I was like, oh my God, like I'm stressed out because I've already had a head-on collision that killed me when I was 16. So it kind of brought in a little PTSD for me. And then I got home and I had to do it. You know, you never know. You never know what's going to happen to you. Like something happens or you get a phone call with bad news, or, you know, like you got a storm coming and you get stressed out, and, you know, maybe you've already lived through a bad storm. So there's lots of good reasons to know this technique and have a technique for yourself. And Mary, I'll send you the YouTube video of the full training on how to do it, because if someone does buy a green laser, they should, I think, go through the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's great. So there's a question in the chat. Is it safe to use the blood clot board in acute DVT?
Yes.
Deep vein thrombosis. Okay, so yes. And then the size of the skeletal chart you're using. I know you have something that's like 11 by 14 that we got in a Hannah Kroger class, but the one you have is bigger.
This
looks
is
like
probably, I'd have to measure it, but this is probably 2.5 feet by 3.5 to 4 feet, this thing.
Okay, so that's
It's
big.
quite big. I bought it laminated online, and it has 2 little punch holes at the top built in that you can hang it, like if you have like an easel or something. Back to the DVT question, I also want to say that sometimes people will have a lot of plaque in their big branch of, I'll move this down like here on the left side. This is where people want to, you know, when they talk about bypasses, it's this. They got a big.
Let's have you be big again. I don't think we need to do your screen sharing unless
Okay,
you want to show something else on the.
No.
Just because it's hard to see.
Okay, so this bundle right here is all your bypass stuff. And then you have the major carotid arteries here that they can tell with the Doppler if they're clogged up. And so you can, I mean, I've done crazy stuff with the blood clot board before, but you can, let's say you happen to know somehow that you have some carotid artery blockage. I know this is going to look silly, but I do silly stuff all the time. I would put the blood clot board here and take an ACE bandage and just watch TV, watch a movie, just let it sit there, because it's very safely dissolves that stuff. And if it's here in the branch bundle block, this area where they talk about bypasses, you can do the same thing. You can just strap that on with an ACE bandage, you know, so you don't have to sit there and do this the whole time. Like I would definitely watch a movie or something like that, put it here. I've heard some pretty incredible stories about a person who had a really large goose egg from falling and tripping and hitting her head on a curb. And she texted me and I said, well, take the blood clot board, because I knew she had one, and put an ACE bandage around the head where that goose egg. And the next morning the goose egg was completely gone. I know of a story in Boulder, and some of you from Boulder might know the story about a woman who was very severely beaten by a man. Well, this isn't a great story because the man wasn't her husband, and it was like an affair. And anyway, she couldn't go home with these bruises. It was just a really totally bad situation. And the story is that like 4 people had blood clot boards, and just went over her body to move those, the bruises. Arnica is
The
great for
bruises.
that too. But when you have bruises, it's little blood coagulation is what that is, because of trauma or injury. So again, you're moving the circulation with that. Now, arnica is a great choice too. If you have arnica cream or arnica gel at home, it helps with bruising. But yeah, lots of things you can do with it if you just think about circulation, like anything you want to move. My sister had a blood clot in her groin, and I gave her a blood clot board to just sit on her lap, in her groin, because she had some COVID vaccine side effects, and she had an aneurysm and a blood clot in her groin. And so that can help with that, and no one really questions this, like even in a hospital. I mean, it's magnetic. So the only rule is don't put it by things that you don't want to mess up that could be messed up by magnetics. So like homeopathy should not be next to magnets. Generally, you don't want to put them in the same package. But I don't know what else.
I did not know that. That was interesting. Okay. Switching back to green laser. There's the link on the website that people can order. So training for the green laser. So that's the 3-hour video. Okay.
That's on YouTube, and I'll send it to anyone that purchases a green laser. I will email the training video to you guys, and I'll also send it to Mary. It's just a nice thing to watch, to know, like, just think outside of what I talked about tonight, because tonight was an hour and a half and that thing's 3 hours.
Does it come with charts was also a question.
No, it didn't come with any charts. But those you can literally, like, I'll just show you real quick. Let me go back and show my screen.
Just get something online.
Yeah, if you just go to Google or whatever and type in skeletal chart, you'll see all these. I mean, they're all over the place, but don't buy one. Just go to the image and then right click and print, or save it, save the image as, and then go back and you can print it. And some of them you can print right from them, so you don't have to buy it. You can buy these giant charts. Like this is like the one I have. I don't think I paid $60 though. I might have paid $30 or $20. But just take the image, save it to your computer, and then print it. And then you can have it laminated if you like, or just print them as you need them. Because if you have a color printer or any printer, they're pretty easy to access. And there's different ones, so you can just pick the kind of skeletal chart that you're more interested in.
There was also a question, does it come with emotional or dowsing charts?
It does not, but you can use the chart we used tonight, or you can use like the emotion code list, or you can use any list that you would normally go to. So I'm going to send Mary back you have the Word version. I can convert it to a PDF, but you can use the one we used tonight, which is pretty thorough. But or you might have it like an emotion code book or some other.
Right, and there are so many charts available online and from, I think, past Dowsers thing that.
Well, I even think emotion code chart is online, and that's a pretty popular one.
And that's a great thing too.
It is online, so you can, and this one's kind of nice because you can just say, is it in row 1, column 1, or is it in row 1, no, yes or no, column 1 or 2, yes or no. So this is a pretty good chart with just all the core emotions. And then there's like Michael Lincoln's books are great. Louise Hay has a pretty good chart of emotions and body parts. It just depends on what you're trying to do, like what you're into. I mean, Body Talk has a pretty good chart of emotions. SRT has a pretty good chart. So there's that's pretty easy to find. Just kind of depends on your personal preference. I typed up the one that we're using tonight because I wanted to bring in the people and like when and what it was related to for what I was doing. But I'll send back Mary a clean copy of that in PDF. I sent it to her in Word, but I'll send it in a PDF. So
it didn't translate when I tried to download it. Made it all kind of gobbledygook. So
yeah, I'll send it to you along with the training video.
Okay, well all right. Does anyone else have a question for Gwen? This has been as usual, amazing, and lots of great information that I think everybody can apply in some form or fashion. you know, and I guess if we can't get a green laser right away, we can intend it, right, with our dowsing.
If
Okay.
you can't get a green laser, think about at least getting the blood clot board. Because before I started using a green laser, I was using the blood clot board with Bradley Nelson's technique, and I was going like this to mimic what I'm doing now with the green laser. I just morphed into something else that I thought was more effective. But the blood clot board works great too. So if you can afford $27 and not $350, then get the blood clot board, because, well, you can use honestly a magnet from your refrigerator. You know, like you can use so many things. Like, and if you don't know who Bradley Nelson is, he has lots of free stuff on YouTube, like instructional videos.
He's the guy who came up with the emotion code and the
Yeah.
body code, and now he's got something that's pretty remarkable called the belief code.
Yeah, he's great. And he does so much free stuff. He does free seminars, like we get on his mailing list. He has great YouTube videos. So yeah, there's a whole world out there. And I think any of us that have been around a while, you learn 4 or 5 or 6 different techniques, and then you just make it your own. That's all I've done. Like, no genius here. I took other people's stuff and met other people that have this green laser. I just, you know, put it together. So I'm always into what's fast, you know, because like when I have an hour appointment and you only have 5 or 10 minutes to work on an emotional clearing part of it, you know, you don't want something that's an hour or longer process. And I don't really find that it's necessary.
Right. And even tonight, that was a pretty quick process to go back and clean up some really old stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah. There was a question about the Michael Lincoln books. Is there a particular Michael Lincoln book that you recommend?
Messages from the Body is like an encyclopedia. That's the one I would start with. Messages from the Body. I mean, his work
Messages
is
from the Body.
amazing.
Okay.
But he also has books on addictions, which I do find that's pretty amazing too. Like, I'll tell you a crazy story if I can, but just about how crazy his work is. I don't know where this guy, I've never taken one of his classes. I just have all of his books, and they're expensive, but they're worth it. I've never taken a class, so I don't know what he was inspired by. But there's a guy in Houston that's a naturopath. I don't know if he's practicing anymore. And we were talking about Michael Lincoln one time, and he says, I thought he was joking, but he said, I have an addiction to lotto tickets. And I was like, really? Like, I started laughing. I bought one lotto ticket in my life and I lost it. Even know if I won, you know, I lost it before I knew if I won. But he said literally if he got home and went to bed, and this is before they're now all online anyway, that he would get up out of bed and drive to the convenience store and buy a lotto ticket. Like, it was a thing, you know, it was like a serious thing for him with the lotto tickets. And I was like, I don't know, I've never looked that up before. So I go to the addiction book of Michael Lincoln's, and it's talking about like kind of being abandoned by your mother as a child, as a small, you know, like either abandoned, but also your mom is like busy with a bunch of kids, or your mom is like at work, whatever your perception of abandonment is. And he looks at me and he says, okay, so my mom left me at the hospital, like left me there, like did not come back to get me. I'm like, wow, that's abandonment from mom, you know? And then interestingly enough, in his story, his grandmother raised him. And then he remembered, like, when he was about 8 years old, that his mother came home finally, like saw him for the first time. And the backstory of that was kind of funny because she had just won a lottery, not a big lottery, but, you know, like $10,000. And she came home when she won that money. And so he had a whole lottery thing in his timeline of being fully abandoned. And then his mom, you know, wins the lottery and comes home, and now he can't go to sleep without buying a lottery ticket. You hear like some stuff and you're like, wow, I mean, the whole thing came full circle. So we were able to go right into like clear that story. So anyway, his books are incredible because you're like, how would he have ever come up with that? Like, and usually on an emotional thing, he has like 3 or 4 or 5 options. The mother abandonment was one of them, you know, so there's usually 2 or 3 or 4 options. I remember there's one too, he says I mean, he just has so many crazy ones that I'm like, where'd that come from?
That's amazing.
So he
Well,
takes like psychotherapy to a different level.
yeah, yeah. Well, this has been amazing, and there's so much love in the chat and appreciation. So thank you, and thank everybody for turning in. Someone says, does Gwen do telemedicine? She can do long distance appointments for sure. And just like you saw, she worked on me long distance. So
Yeah, I do the same thing on the phone. So if anyone's interested in an appointment on my website, you can order the blackout board or the green lasers. We ship out products on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And then you can also schedule an appointment if you'd like to do an appointment. And then we just go into this, depending on what you want to do. We can do emotional stuff, we can do physical stuff. I am a full-blown naturopath, so we talk about physical ailments. My specialty is autoimmune disorders, getting into, trauma, drama, coaching, all the stuff that Mary said in the beginning. So it just depends on what you could have a health issue, but you can also have like a mental block or emotional block. So we do all those things.
yeah, and you can do them in person or remotely. So yeah. All right. Well, thank everybody for tuning in, and we're glad you could join us. And let's see, if you want to make a donation, that would be awesome. We appreciate that. And we will send out the recording when it is ready in, a few days. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Mary. And thanks you guys for staying on and being with us on Wednesday night. It was awesome. I'm